Welcome to the Property Mindset Podcast, where I'm Emma Howitt, mentor, investor, and your guide to building wealth, freedom, and personal transformation through property. And property isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about building the life that you truly desire. So in this space, we don't just talk strategy, we deep dive into mindset, and something that I found is often really missing in other industries, but it's been an absolute game changer in the professional property circle. And today I am so excited to have somebody that I can now call a friend who I aspired and was inspired by for so many years. Gillie Barlow, how are you?
Oh, I'm very well and always excited to be speaking with you, Emma.
Oh, fantastic. So let's turn dreams into actions and actions into success. So, Gillie, I'm just going to go straight in there with a big question. You
Okay,
wake
I'm
up,
ready.
you wake up tomorrow morning and you've lost everything. You've got no property, no contacts, no money. What is the first thing you do, and how would you work on your mindset to rebuild from scratch?
Wow. Do you know what? It's such a tough question, but so many people have found themselves in reality to be there. I think for me, I'd have to realize I've still got air in my lungs. Let's be real here. I could say that I would jump up and say, this is going to be okay. And actually, I've learned, having gone through an awful lot of peaks and troughs and ups and downs and, bumps in the road, that your mindset is absolutely key to everything. In reality, when things as big as that happen, you have got to remember how to breathe. You have got to remember that actually breath in our lungs is far more important than money in our pockets. And until we don't wake up, we've got the day to try and fathom out what the next step is. And I think people, they fear so quickly. And one of the things that I've been quite blessed about in my life is that I don't fear too much. I'm a little bit pragmatic in situations like that. I'm a little bit, I'm a problem solver. So for me, the biggest thing that I've ever said, I think, and this was way back in 1989, was I'm going to do it. The question is how. So that's what I would do. I would make sure I had breath in my lungs. I would probably, would I cry a few tears, or would adrenaline set in straight away? I don't know. But the probability is adrenaline would set in fairly quickly and I'd start problem solving. And I try really hard, and this is a very difficult one, not to allow myself to get stressed. Thankfully, if I get stressed, I feel it in the bones of my chest. So I go, Gillie, stop it. Because actually stress is so bad for us and it can create illness far later on down the road. So I'm really, really aware of not allowing things and other people that pull the rug from under our feet to allow that stress. In the moment, would I react like that? I don't know. But I've had similar things happen that have been almost as big or bigger, but in a very different light world. And I found myself to absolutely do what I just said.
Amazing, amazing. And I love that you opened inherently with gratitude. And I think that that's been something huge for me, and you've certainly supported that, is, when things hit the fan, you literally have to see what is good, because there's always an up. If there's an up, there's always a down. If there's a back, there's always a forward. There's always something that is good from something. So yeah, absolutely amazing. So I just want to jump in now. So in case anyone hasn't got the full knowledge of Gillie, so I met Gillie through the fact that she is basically the purchase lease option queen. There is nothing that Gillie doesn't know. She has pretty much trained everyone in the country who does purchase lease options. She is so generous with her time. She is an incredible mindset advocate, 2 times author as well. So, Gillie, yeah, just tell us a bit how you started, because I absolutely love your story. And for me, it's just really inspiring to hear that you didn't go through the normal route, which was me, which was, oh, I really need to do something a bit more grown up. I'll go and buy a course on property, and then I'll go that kind of very traditional route. You were very much sort of self-taught, so I'd love to hear a bit more about how that's how that initiated.
Okay, so you need to step in if I carry on, because I'm passionate about all of this mindset stuff. So I came out of school at 16. I'm an identical twin, literally not daft as a brush. That's absolutely wrong, but didn't do very well at school, using everything and couldn't wait to get out. I had a very volatile upbringing. Lovely in that we were in an old farmhouse, but fairly difficult in other ways, to say the least. And thought maybe I'd have an identity crisis, being an identical twin, being called Twin and Barlow all our lives until I was an adult. But actually didn't. Well, I didn't think I had. And you with mindset and things, as you grow and you get older and you think you're getting wiser, it's about bettering yourself and looking deeper into why you react and respond to things. Anyway, for some reason, built into me was a very positive attitude, one of a massive love for life. And when I was 21, I didn't really know what to do. I'd been running a business called Help at Hand, which was to help do anything really. Sometimes I'd pig sit, believe it or not, a pig called Fifi. Other times I'm doing secretarial work, climbing up, emptying, guttering. I don't think you even know that about me, Emma. And then one day, my father, who's semi-retired, took us all to Africa, where mum and dad had been born and brought up. And out there, I ended up meeting the four of us four daughters went across overland in a truck for a week to a place called Turkana, where my grandfather had actually been district officer in the middle of the bush of Kenya. And the man that was running it, he ran another safari company in Botswana in the off season of Kenya, and his cook had rolled the vehicle and run away. So he's asking everybody, do you want to come out to Africa? Anyway, we got back from Africa. I was very young. 3 weeks later, I flew to the Kalahari Desert, absolutely terrified. And I lived there in the bush for a year. And while I was out there, I had a dream. And I have a strong faith. I'm a Christian. And the dream had been about disabled children and a place in the mountains. And on safari, there'd been a Swiss couple that had spoken about their place in the mountains. And I'd been brought up around disabled children because my mother had set up riding for the disabled in Abingdon when I was 6. So I got up that morning and I just said very arrogantly, give me 5 years and I'll have a house in the mountains. Well, 2 years later, I was in the French Alps and I just felt drawn due to an incident that happened on the mountains. I felt very drawn to come down and go into an estate agent. And that was the beginning of a story that is just monumental in terms of me being guided in things happening, from car crashes to all sorts of things. But me ending up with a property in the French Alps that sleeps 12 people, that today is worth, well over $1 million. And at the time, having got back from Africa, this is 2 years later when I had the dream, I was gutting fish in a fish farm. So don't let anybody ever, ladies and gentlemen, tell you that you need money to start a property portfolio, empire, whatever you want to call it. Don't let anybody tell you that money is a reason not to get to your dream. So that was the beginning of my property journey. And the following summer, this is the really exciting part, I took my first group of disabled children out there. That was 1991, by the time a full year had gone by. In 1994, I officially registered it as a charity. And in 1996, I don't know if you know this, Emma, I won the Childline Award for Great Britain. So, it's been a massive journey. I don't usually say that, but the disabled children grew a lot. And I had parents come to me and they'd say, what did you do? And I said, we did everything. They parachuted, but they can't walk. They did whitewater rafting and we glued them to the base of the raft. No, we didn't really. They've done so much. We've done Olympic Games out there. They believe in who they are because of what they achieved, and they are wonderful. And they said, well, what do we do when they leave school? Because this was for aged sort of 6 up to probably 18. And so sometime later in my portfolio, again, I don't know if you know this, I had back surgery, and I went out to Canada to recuperate for a month. And while I was out there, I walked halfway around Lake Louise and saw a disabled young adult. And I had a vision about a place in the Canadian mountains. And so I wrote to the High Commission. I went to the High Commission when I got back to England, and spoke to the embassy, and they said they'd roll out the red carpet because I was going to employ a Canadian, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the long and the short of it was, I, again, with none of my own money, acquired a piece of land in Canada some years ago, and I haven't built it yet, but the dream is to build a log house out there, and for 3 months of the year allow disabled young adults to go there to build up their confidence, to give back to disabled young children in Canada, and to give them a salary check at the end when they won't expect it, which is what I got when I went to Africa. So there's a little bit of how it all began.
Absolutely incredible. And I think your generosity and kindness and wish to help others is, you know, beyond anyone else I think that I even know. So, you know, you do such great stuff, Gillie. And in that, I know that you've written a couple of books. So one of them is Understanding Your Truth to Find Success, and the other one is Get Property, Starting with Nothing. So I definitely want to touch on both of those. But with your book, Understand Your Truth to Find Success, it really obviously emphasizes understanding one's truth. But how did sort of uncovering your own truth shape your success in property investment, and how can others sort of apply this to find their perhaps ideal strategy?
Fantastic question, Emma. It's all to do with our minds. And I think that the combination of having a hard childhood and struggling to be recognized as an individual, being an identical twin, I say that I think this is the case. I had to start to look at myself in the mirror and not look at flesh, but look at who I thought I was in terms of, was I good? Could I improve? You know, what do I think of myself? And deep down in my heart, I knew I had a good heart. And I needed to believe in who I was, irrespective of labels, irrespective of exam results, irrespective of whether somebody recognized me to be Gillie or Sarah, irrespective of anything other than what I believed I'd been put here to do and be. And I believe that my book starts off pretty much saying, with 7 billion in the world, I know it's 8 billion now, but with 7 billion as it was then in the world, what do you think of yourself? Does it scare you to think that you are the only you that ever has been, is, or will be? Because we can get lost in this world of being one of so many and feeling totally insignificant in the greater scheme of things. But actually, if we think about the fact that we are the only people, I'm saying this as an identical twin, we are the only ones of ourselves that will ever be. So how wonderful is it if we can look at ourselves and say, irrespective of what has been and how much bad or good or indifferent I have been as an individual, how would it be if I decided to attempt to be the best version of myself that I can, irrespective? Now, don't forget, I've done 7 years voluntary work in prisons. And all the people in prison, whether they're in, and justice was done or justice wasn't done, and they're in wrongly so, they've served their punishment. They are who they decide to be, and they can change. But the thing is, Emma, is that so many of us are imprisoned in our own minds anyway, irrespective of whether it's behind bars. I've written another book actually called A Letter to His Boys Behind Bars, and it's not published yet. But the point is, it's not just to the men behind bars or the women behind bars physically, because so many of us in our mindset are imprisoned. based on what we think because of what we've heard about ourselves and taken on board, or what we genuinely think about ourselves because we see ourselves as failures or having failed in something. So I think that for whatever reason back then, God gave me something that I was intuitive to understanding this, but obviously I've gone through things. I came from a place of nothing. When I went to Africa, my father bought me that ticket, but it's literally the only pennies that I've ever had from anybody I know other than investors to invest in a wise way. Yeah. So I just want people to understand that your head, not your heart, your head is what we need to help you with or sort in order for you to believe, first and foremost, that you are worthy. Where you stand right now, you are worthy, that you have every right, as much as any other person that you admire, aspire to be like, who has succeeded in the world, you have as much right to succeed. But in your head, you also have to determine what success means to you, because it might mean something completely different to the next person. To me, absolutely, success means a good life. It doesn't mean thousands and billions of pounds in account, which is why I want to share. It doesn't mean that. It means fulfillment. It means joy. It means going through those storms with a deep-seated peace on the base, because you can ride that storm on the surface knowing there's not a tsunami underneath. And so I don't know where it came from initially, because it was all self-taught. But I've learned that mindset is key, unbelievably, to success for the most part, for most people. And it isn't taught. You know, as I do, that in the property world, and I'm sure in many other worlds, it's touched on. It's touched on like a flea jumping on a cat. It's touched on like a pig flying past the window. And what they do is they teach generically. Well, I ask you this question: how on earth can you teach mindset generically when we've all been through different good, different bad? We've all been molded in a different way. We've all got different DNA. We're all going to learn differently. We're all going to absorb differently. You know, I want so badly to be able to learn a language so well that I dream in it, other than English. And I really struggle. But I don't struggle to understand numbers in property and mindset, although I'm learning all the time. We're all different. And that's an absolute blessing and a joy as an identical twin. I promise you it is. And so these things are just things that God's put on my heart, or I've come to learn or understand and grow in, but are absolutely crucial to the lives, not just the success of individual people. It starts with what you think about yourself.
Ah, that's really powerful. And I definitely believe that this was a huge one for me, Gillie, as well. Is I mean, I sort of call it your self-image, basically. And when I really started to look at myself, even just the way I walked, the way I carried myself, the way I did things, you suddenly become so much more aware. And listening to what you say to yourself is easier if you verbalize it, but sometimes, as we know, there's a lot going on inside your head as well. And when you listen to that, you suddenly realize, my gosh. And I remember early on somebody said to me, you know, would you say that to your child? And I say this a lot to people, and I've had people instantly burst into tears and just say, well, no, of course not. And it's like, well, you can't say it to yourself. And we tend to berate, don't we, and hold ourselves down, and I can't do this, and I'm not good enough for this, or blah 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 blah. And it's such a shame, because people miss out on, you know, so much to move forward. So yeah, I mean, absolutely amazing, Gillie. So yeah, they definitely get some help if they go and get your book. But
well, you read the book, Emma, and I think you were one of the first people to read Understand Your Truth to Find Success, and I think it had quite an impact.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would definitely recommend it. In fact, we'll put it in the show notes as well. We'll pop a link in there.